Alright guys, it's a big one on the numbers. Um, I know that a lot of people struggle with numbers, and I think that even forever you're gonna struggle with numbers. At least all I've done is become used to the numbers. I wouldn't say I'm perfect at the numbers, but like often I can think of the number quite quickly. But the problem with numbers is it's not really a passive activity, and it requires a lot of like self practicing to actually do it. So I've got a presentation here as you can see. So I might do some more videos with presentations, whichever ones are easier to do, because at least then it gives you something to look at, and it's not just like footage that's gonna get copyright striked. So first of all, you want to learn the numbers, because obviously how can you know the numbers without ever learning them? Now it's quick and easy. There's only like what 20 different numbers, so you've got 20 numbers, and then you've got different size of intervals of the Sino-Koreans, and you've also got the tens of the pure Korean. So that's like 19 numbers and then 20 numbers. I've missed out zero, which is yong and gong. So first of all, learn the numbers. There's one thing I want to point out with these is that so 5, 6, so 6 yosot and yesun, that is 60. 6 and 60. Notice how they start with like a very similar um letter, and also the second syllable is really similar. So that is the first one that has like this pattern, and then you have ilgop and idin, and then you have yodol and yodin, and then ahob and ahin. So these numbers don't come up that often. They still come up quite often. But I think people tend to avoid using them nowadays, especially these ones. But whenever you're supposed to use a pure Korean word, anything under 99 is going to use these, and probably most Koreans will use that anyway. So obviously these ones we all know. We've got Chon, Man, Okjo, and Kyong, but Kyong is obviously rare as hell. We'll go over the big numbers later. So these are the few tips that I've got. So practicing counting, hear the numbers, learn the currency, big numbers. All right, let's go through. So practice counting. So this is literally as simple as it sounds. And because it's so difficult to switch your brain's fingers, so we are used to seeing these digits, the Arabic numerals, as I think most people call them. They're slightly different to Arabic numerals, but these are like the standard that we use all around the world. So these numbers, we are so used to seeing them in our native language that you instantly recognize, you see a one, and then you instantly think one. You don't think in a different language. You have to condition yourself to do it. And a lot of people, I don't think they don't really realize this, that you have to deliberately do it, and it will become easier. So whenever I see a two, well, obviously in Korean it can be hard. If there's nothing there, it will just be like e, like, and then if there's a counter there or something, you'll be like two, and then you have like you can have any number there. So even in Korean, even it's even harder because you have to remember two numbers could possibly be the number, like the word, but you need the entire structure in Korean. So when it's just a single number on its own, it's generally just the Sino-Korean numbers, which makes it a lot easier. So the first thing I would suggest is just count from like 1 to 10, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So you just count the numbers. And then what you can do is like what I used to do was, I haven't done it for a while, but you just count from 1 to 10 in pure Korean, count to 1 to 10 in Sino-Korean numbers, and this will get you used to the order. But the problem is you don't want to become used to the order. So even when if you could count to 100 perfectly in order, it's not gonna help you exactly. Like you're just kind of memorizing the order, and it's kind of weird to say, but um like you need to be able to count in twos, count in fours, count in tens, count in fives, all sorts of stuff like that. So you just like oh shibo. Like obviously that's a bit easy because in Korean there tends to be. I feel like it's more structured than the English like version, or probably many other languages, because a lot of the structure of the way that the words are made is different. So even counting in like pure Korean, you just go like tasot, and then wait, did I say shibo 열 earlier? So 다섯, 열, um, what is it? 열다섯, and then you got 스물, 스물다섯, 서른, 서른다섯. So like using, I feel like using the pure Korean numbers to count is usually always harder because the structure is a bit harder and the tens change constantly. So that's something to practice, and you can do this while you're walking, or even if you're counting something like that doesn't need like speed, because obviously if you need speed you'll just use your native language or English or whatever to get the job done. But a lot of people, even years in, they still suck at numbers, and they know they suck at numbers, and they know that they need to practice it, but it's not important enough. It's not a priority compared to a lot of the other things in the language. So this is a way to practice them and to really like to get them um, more into your head. And what you want to do as well is if you try and like visually use the digit, not the characters, not the hangul. You want to use the like the digits. So if you try and use the digits to get your like a brain going, and you try and think about the digit while you're thinking of the number, this will help you instead of instantly recognizing the number as, oh, that's 2, oh, that's 8, oh, that's 91. Like you need to start using like your brain like actively to imagine you need to associate the word with the digit. And like multiple languages is very hard. I'm sure that a lot of people in who speak like a lot of languages, they just use their native language because it's quicker, and then they'll just translate it as opposed to just knowing the number. Like when I'm reading books now, like every time I see a number, I already know what the number is anyway. Like when it's a digit, I just know how to say it anyway, so it's perfectly fine. It does its job. I don't need to interact with any bigger numbers anyway, so I'm fine. Like this does its job for me. So it would depend on your personal circumstance. If you don't really care, you don't need to do that, but it will help. So a good tip as well is to also, when I first started reading, I would use there is in the Ready Books app, which I used to read books. There is a text to speech. So every time I saw a number, I would just use the text to speech on it, especially if it was a large number. Even though the large numbers don't tend to just be written as like one string of numbers, so it's never really a problem because it will have the divisions there for you anyway. So it makes it a lot easier when you start getting to like man and up and jewel. You get the numbers. The divisions are already there usually in most web novels and all that. So it's not really a problem. But when they come up, when you're not 100% sure on the digit, you can just use the text to speech, and you can do this online as well. You can do it on the computer. You can use text to speech on the computer. I'm pretty sure that you can go to the Microsoft. There is a website. I think it's Azure Microsoft. I'll try and leave it in the description, and you can just put the number in there and then use the text to speech on there if you don't want to keep activating your text to speech on your computer. So you can always do that, and it will help you get the numbers into your head. And then also the first tip that's written down, when you hear a number, like when somebody says a number, you're watching something and someone says a number. I know most of you use subs anyway, but when you hear a number or you hear someone say a number, try to visualize the digits, not just like someone says Samchon. Don't just try and imagine like Sam and Chon like written down like as Hangul. Try and imagine the actual number 3,000, because that will help you get used to hearing the more you hear it, the more natural it becomes for you to say it. So when you hear the numbers, it becomes more like ingrained within your speech as well. So that's another thing to do, is to make sure you're hearing the numbers and not just seeing them, and it'll help you remember the numbers better, and it also help you produce the numbers better. So for money, money is actually so much easier than it like needs to be, because all you have to do is remember the basic denominations, and then you're good to go. Someone says Oman one, yeah, anything that's above man one and Oman, in between Oman one, you can just give them the Oman one, and then like that'll just give you change. Like it's not difficult. So all you need is Chon. Like once you know Chon one, and then all you have to know is anything above or Chon one, you just give man one. Like it's that simple. So just knowing the denominations is probably easier if you live in the country, because then you can just obviously just you can get the currency from the bank and start just looking at it, and you'll see it every day, so you'll get used to the numbers. But and then um, the thing is, when people, what you'll notice is in TV shows, they tend to just deal in like man one, or like you'll see them giving each other like huge stacks of cash, which is basically all man one, just stacks of that. So you'll see a big yellow wad, and you know what it is. Obviously, you don't know how much it is, but you know which note it will be, which helps identifying how much money people are giving to each other, because you can see when people are giving each other man one, man one, man one, yeah, because you can see the color of it. So it's kind of worth learning the color of the notes as well, just so you can see it in your immersion. So the last one is big numbers, and I think this is what people tend to struggle with. But really, big numbers don't come up that often. Maybe currencies, maybe the only time they ever come up. So um, what you'll notice is the first big thing is, and even this is in small numbers as well. So the main difference between like Western denominations and Korean denominations is that, not just Korean, but like Asian, Chinese, and Japan as well, they use the same one. They group them into fours. So like man is like the division, like the main division. So and then man, instead of man, you have op. So that's a 10 to the power of 4, 10 to the power of 8, and then joule is 10 to the power of 12, which is man op, but obviously they don't use that. So then they're the main ones that you'll need. I think the most you'll see is joule. I think I've seen kyong one time, but I just added it in because it fits well with so standard form, if you don't know, is like you times the number by 10 to the power of whatever, and that's how many zeros there are. So 1000 is 10 to the power of 3 because there is 3 zeros after the number. So this really helps us visualize better the larger numbers because we can see them better. Sort of, if you can, it's hard to explain, especially if you're new to like standard form, which is what we call it in the UK. It might be called something different elsewhere, but so 10 to the reason we use this mainly is because it just helps shorten the numbers instead of having longest numbers. So 10 to the power of 10 to the power of 3 is like kilo, which is like this is really common, like kilometers and kilograms and all that. And then 10 to the power of 6 is mega, which you'll see mainly used in megabytes. But these are worth learning because then this is a million, so this is a pingman. So it's kind of worth learning them in the Western denominations as well, and also the like Korean denominations of the fours. So short would be a billion, I think. Once they start getting this high, I mean, how many times in English do we use a trillion and a billion? Maybe we use a billion or $1 billion company or whatever. Like, but no one knows exactly how many zeros that is always. We just know that it's the one above a million because we separate them by threes. So a trillion is obviously one above a billion, so we just know it's an extra three zeros more than a billion. So just knowing like that's the same as them knowing like Koreans would know like op, jul, and kyong. They just if they hear kyong, they just know it's like four zeros bigger than jul. So that's the kind of way you have to treat it because they're never going to come up and you're never going to have to use it yourself. So the main things just to remember are like pingman and shibok, which are basically a million and a trillion. Not a million, yeah, a trillion I think actually. Yeah. So it's relatively easy. Um, and that's about it for the big numbers because you don't really need to worry about them that much. And then that is the end of the slideshow, and that is the end of the video. So thank you for watching. Hopefully it helped you out. So leave a comment if it helped you out. I will leave a blog post in the description, which is basically the same thing. I think it covers all the same points, but obviously it might be a bit quicker for you to just read through it anyway. So thank you for watching, and leave a comment if it helped you. Like and subscribe. All the best.